If anybody in here, a little early, which is better than late, right? So I guess I have to wait for a few people to jump in. Hope everybody's had a good day so far. Working on a Ranchero video, which is what I thought was going to be easy, but maybe not so much. We'll see. I've got one person in the chat. Hi, whoever you may be. And now I got 4 people. Hi, 4 people. Hi, Richard. How are you? Hi, John. Good to see you. I put the slow motion on, so if you try to ask a question, you might have to wait 20 seconds to ask another one, only because I'm a little slow. So I want to get things right. Hey, Marcus. Hi, Marcus from Spain. How are you? So just to give you a little update, the Maverick has been sold. The new owner was looking for a 77 Maverick for over a year. So I think it's going to a good home. Seemed to like it. Actually went on a trailer. So I know it was probably a little confused as to what was going on. It's used to being driven. So I think that's the first time that Maverick was on a trailer. But it's going to a good home. I think the gentleman's was really looking for one. So I'm happy that's the result of that car. That's really what I wanted to see happen with it, is to go to a good home. Mr. Mach One, how are you, sir? Royalty in the house. Good to see you. And thank you, Richard. Thanks. It was probably the easiest car sale I ever made. The gentleman showed up, drove it up the mountain, came back down, looked it over, parked it behind his trailer, and paid full asking price. So that's about as easy as it's ever going to get for somebody trying to sell a car. I did walk him around it. I did point out all the flaws. Like, I did some of the body work on there. It was rattle can, spray job on the bottom, but it was what he wanted. So the interior in the car was nice. Obviously, it ran well. So he was good with that. Hey, Alan, how are you? If anybody has any questions on that trip that Glenn and I took, fire away. I put what I could in the video, but it's more the highlights of the trip that we took. Some of the lowlights, which there was enough, I didn't actually put into the content. I didn't want to come across as whiny, I guess. So the heat in the car worked great, which I didn't know I'd need. So I'm from Pennsylvania. When I left, it was 70. By the time I got into Wyoming, it was in the 20s. And I did not pack a jacket. I packed a light fleece, and that was it. My Torino video is really taken off. I have no idea why. Maybe there's just a lack of those on the internet. I'm not really sure. It's gotten 25,000 views in the last 28 days, which that's a half-hour video. That's a lot of views on that thing. And yeah, it's crazy. So I appreciate you folks jumping in here. This is my second live session. It's not something that I plan to do that often. It's not really my format. I like to tell stories. I like to dig into the history of Ford, or find something that's interesting. If I find something on one of the new vehicles, I'll try to put a video out on that. But I do want to interact with you guys, you folks out there. I do appreciate you very much watching my content. When I first started the channel, I didn't know if anybody was actually going to watch it. I thought, I'm just going to make videos that someday my kids can watch. And if I'm at some point, I'm not going to be around anymore, but I wanted to have some sort of permanent record of who I was and what I was into. And the fact that people actually watch the stuff is, it's overwhelming. It's fantastic. So it's certainly appreciated. Marcus has a question. Do I know anyone that Ford that can help you? No, I do not. Your car's stuck in Newark for 3 months waiting to be collected. Yeah, that's a tough one. And I know you're over in Spain, so it may not be in Newark. I'm not sure on how quickly Ford's tracking system picks those things up. It may possibly be on a boat, and it just hasn't been logged yet that it's en route. But no, I really don't know anyone at Ford. Your dealer that you purchased it from, they can up, they can move that up the chain and talk to the regional manager at Ford to try to move that process along. That would be what I would tell you to do. My advice. Daniel, hi Daniel. I make a lot. I can make. Hey, thanks for making the live chat. You just got back from Track Attack. Uh, yeah, I'm going to be leaving in about a month's time to go back. I didn't want to go back. I had to buy another car. So that second purchase also gave me a second ticket to Track Attack. I actually just got back from time on Lime Rock, and I was on a track called Palmer Motorsports Park. It's the highest elevation change on a track in America, and it's intimidating when you look at it. It goes up levels. It's built into a mountain. I think of it as like a motorcycle track. There's not a whole lot of runoff. They've got a lot of tire barriers, but it's a really cool track to check out. I'm excited to go back to Track Attack. No, I did not go to the recommended hotel. I found one for around $100. That's 4.5 out of 5. That's probably my biggest advice if you're going to Track Attack is to find another hotel over there. It's probably going to be nicer and less money. And it's a good time. I wouldn't pay for the second day. There's a lot cheaper schools out there that you can pay for, save a little bit of money and pick up some additional information. Hey, thank you, John. I don't know if my videos are the best, but I try. I tell you, I try hard. Daniel, hoping to get to Track Attack this fall. Daniel, if you have the chance, go. I mean, especially if you've never been on track before, it is a good experience, a good school that Ford put together. You will pick things up. I picked things up that I forgot. The folks that are there are all professionals. And when I mean professionals, professional drivers. And they will give you tips and see what you're doing wrong and try to point you in the right direction. So it's definitely worth going to. Nick Brown. Hey, Nick, how are you? Thank you, sir. Trying to make a cross-country road trip. That was much legend. Okay, so what advice would I give to someone that's trying to make a cross-country road trip that doesn't have the mechanical knowledge that I have? And I have some. I'm not, an expert mechanic. I've been around cars since the age of 13. I'm now 57, so 40 some years. I did train as a jet engine mechanic. I worked on C-130s during my time in the Air Force. Take a reliable car that you don't have to work on. That would be the first thing I tell you. I wanted to do it in an old car. I'd driven across this country many times in old cars, but it had been a number of years. I tried to do it in my 70, and if you watch those videos, I ended up having a rear axle bearing. I lost that in Gothenburg, Nebraska, and you need a press to get that bearing off. Nobody packs a bearing press. It's just not something you do. So that delay, it took 3 days to get the part in and then finally find a shop that was willing to work on it to get that car back on the road. At that point, it was just, we threw in the towel on that trip. John was there at Track Attack on the 28th. I'm sure you had a good time. It's a nice program. They really do run a good program. GT with PP2 versus Mach 1. How much not getting the Mach 1? That's from Alan. The PP2 is not a bad car. The reason why I didn't look at it was the transmission. I dealt with an MT82 on my Boss 302, and I had high RPM lockout. If you don't get high into the RPM, it's not going to be a problem for you. I'm talking over $7,000 on my Boss 302. Anytime I got the 71 or 72, 7,300 RPM, and I tried to find second, it just wasn't there. Now, I'm told that that's a clutch issue. I can't verify that. I never replaced the clutch. I just tried other workarounds, and they made it marginally better, but it was always present. And I didn't want to deal with another MT82. There was a class action lawsuit. I imagine Ford's corrected those issues. That was kind of the big letdown on the Boss 302 with me. Why put together a car that's so track competent and then put this garbage transmission in there? And that's essentially what happened with that car. That's why I steer. And I understand as a second version of the MT82, it's supposed to be better, but I wasn't going to give Ford another chance to to get me yet a second time. So the Tremec was the big deal for me with the Mach 1. Plus, I have a 70, so I've got some legacy there. I wanted to have another car to match my old car. So a new Mach 1 and the old Mach 1 together, it just made sense. Um, Other than that, I don't know that you're missing a whole lot with the Performance Pack 2 car. It is a very competent car. It's hard to say. You have to look at that personally. So I know folks tell me they can get an MT82 to work correctly. And if you can do that and you're willing to put a little bit of money into it to make it work right, you should be fine. Let's see. Glenn Beck. How much cleaning do I have to do on the Maverick? Glenn is the gentleman that went with me across the country. And not that Glenn pitched in a lot, but Glenn was the mental part of the game that I needed to keep going. So when I had issues with the Maverick, it was, I wanted to throw my hands up in the air, but Glenn was having none of that. Glenn was not going to let us fail yet again. So his attitude kind of nudged me along, and I in turn nudged the Maverick along. So I did a lot of cleaning on that car, Glenn. Power washed it when I got back. And then I went through and detailed the engine out because it was going to a new owner. So I didn't want to have the dust and dirt on the car for the new owner. I wanted to clean it up and make it right. So the power steering pump was replaced. You know about the tires being replaced in the front end. I welded the exhaust so that the next person didn't have to deal with the clamp issue and the exhaust making way too much noise. So that was welded closed. Cleaning wise, it's about a day, something like that. Kevin, hey, Kevin, how are you? And your break, can't watch long. Thanks for coming in here. Appreciate it. Rich, hey, guys. Hi, Rich. How are you, sir? Hey, Gary. If you are wanting a manual, get the Mach 1. I think that's true. And that's from Richard. If you want a manual transmission, like I said, the MT82 gave me problems, and I'm just not one to get fooled twice, I guess. So that's why I didn't look at the Performance Pack 2. I just went to the Mach 1. Although I understand the A10 now has some issues. People are reporting a lot of issues with those. I haven't dove into that yet, but I probably will at some point here in the near future. I've told people that the A10 is a faster transmission. It absolutely is. I have a friend who had his Mach 1 on track with the A10 in track mode. It's a different beast in track mode. The thing really just gets it. I bought the manual because it's a personal preference thing. I prefer to drive it. I find it more fun. But we'll see what goes on with the A10s. Let me look down here. Daniel says get a Tremec for sure. Really, it's up to you. Not everyone can drive a manual transmission. Not everybody enjoys it. And it depends on the type of driving you're doing. If you're doing any kind of city commuting, if you're in any kind of bumper to bumper traffic, a manual transmission is not something you really want. If you're out in the back roads, you're in less populated areas, you're going to the track, a manual transmission is a blast and it's a lot of fun. I can tell you on my trip back from San Francisco, there's a bridge that connects the western side of California to the eastern side. I think it's the San Mateo Bridge. It's 18 miles long. And it was bumper to bumper traffic for 18 miles. I think Glenn and I sat in that for 30 minutes. To have a manual transmission of that in that situation would have been a nightmare. It would have been something that I just would have hated. So, yeah, the Tremec's a great transmission. I really, really like it. I put a shifter in my 2021. I haven't done it in the 2022 because it's not that much of an upgrade. It's better, but only marginally better, just, slightly, a little bit better. But I don't know that it's $500 and some dollars. I don't know that it's a wise investment or return on investment, I guess is the way to put it. Daniel, he's impressed with the A10, but he prefers a manual. Said the A10s I've seen, and especially at the drag strip, they perform. Like you can't. I went to an 1/8 mile drag strip, lined up against a guy in an A10. We both dropped it in drag mode. I didn't get out of first gear. I have no idea what gear he was, but he was already pulling a car length before I went to shift the second. And people say, well, you have no lift shift. And that's true. But the A10 will keep your car in the maximum horsepower range and it'll get there quicker. So you're just going to stay where the maximum power of the engine is with an A10. Whereas a 6-speed, can't really do that. Okay. What other news to tell you? Yeah, the Maverick's gone. Is there going to be a replacement? Possibly. I really need to get my 70 out again. It's been a while. I've kind of neglected that car only because the Maverick needed attention to complete the trip. So I want to get the 70 out, and I drive my 70. So when I say get it out, I'm going to go a couple hundred miles somewhere. So it will go to shows occasionally, but only if they're far enough away that I can drive to them and enjoy the drive. Typically, at a show, I'll park the car, put the hood up. I don't even fill out the card they give you half the times. I just stow it in the windshield. If there's a ballot there, I give it to somebody else. I walk around, look at the cars, get back in my car, and then drive home. So the best part of a car show for me, it's just a reason to get in there and drive the old car. I do like driving my 70. Is it anything like the 2022? No, not at all. I compare it to like a farm tractor versus a modern car. It's a lot of work. Your throws are way longer, they're not near as precise. The steering is, you're way out here like you're steering an old truck, but it's still fun. It's nostalgia, and I really like driving that car. Luke says he never ended up fixing his actuator on the active exhaust. He just pulled the fuse and he's leaving it out. Well, that's one way to do it. I mean, you can certainly just leave it open all the time and not worry about it. That actuator problem, I don't know why Ford can't get that right. They use the same part on both sides. And I always tell people, don't even look at the driver's side because the actuator's pointing towards the front of the car, away from the frame. But since they use the same part, they flipped it on the passenger side. And at the factory, if they don't get that exhaust pushed up quite right, they don't leave a little bit of a gap there, your wire hits that frame, and eventually it rubs on the frame, and you get bare wires, and you get a short. Now, that short can get so bad that the wires are just gone, and you need a new harness. And I don't understand why Ford has had active exhaust in that car for so long. And if I know it's a problem, they obviously know it's an issue. So that's a kind of a quality control issue with them. I don't know why they can't get that right. Glenn Beck says, yeah, that bridge with his manual. Yeah, so Glenn had a 6-speed. I had the Maverick, which was an automatic. So I really had to do was push the brake. And I was glad I did. His 6-speed, I'm sure his clutch leg was begging for mercy. 18 miles of bumper-to-bumper traffic on a bridge across a bay is not a good time. He put a Borla Swiftfire resonator. This is from Hitman D. Put a Borla Swiftfire resonator delete on a 2023 Mach One. Which brand do I like? I'm not sure where I'm going with the exhaust on the 2022. I'm probably going to do something here shortly. More than likely, it's going to be headers. I don't know if I'm going to delete the resonator or not. I don't see the resonator offering a lot of back pressure there. It's more the cats and the header setup. And the folks that I've seen that put headers on are looking at 20-ish horsepower. I think that with the new filter and the trap removed, I might get a little bit more than that. So, and maybe the res will go. I don't know. If that's a thing, then that'll go as well. But I really don't want to boost this car. I know a lot of people out there that have boosted them, and more power to you if that's what you're interested in. I drive my car long distances all the time. So like I said, I just got back from driving in Vermont and Massachusetts, and I prefer to do that. I never want a trailer or a car I own. It's not something I want to do. So I think the next move for me is probably going to be long tubes, some high flow cats, and maybe a res delete, and we'll see where. And I'll dyno it. I'll video it and dyno it. And we'll see what kind of return I get on that. Is it going to be worth the hassle and the money to get it done? Well, I guess time's going to tell. Here's a question. Ford didn't have the handling package available. This is from Daniel. When he ordered the car, there was a tire shortage. He was going to piecemeal it together. Do I think it's worth it? Daniel, I don't know that you can piecemeal the handling pack together. And if you do, it's going to be way more than you would have paid for it from Ford. Now, can you get the appearance? Absolutely. You can go out and buy the wheels. You can buy the splitter. You can buy the spoiler. I didn't even put my splitter on the 2022 only because I scraped the one on the 2021 too much. My splitter is hanging up in the rafters. That's where it's going to stay until I sell the car. Um, there's other components other than, the wheels. Um, if you want that look, certainly you can do it. And um, it depends on what you're going for. If you want I think there's a bigger sway bar involved. There's other parts to that. So you have the adjustable um, parts in the front end that I don't know that you can add those to a standard Mach One, but it depends what you're going for. If you're just going for the looks of the handling pack, you can replicate that relatively easily. And if there was a tire shortage on Cup Twos, don't ask me. I mean, they could have went on Marketplace or eBay and picked up a set almost new, if not new, pretty cheaply, because most people that get those on the car take them off almost right away. You're welcome, Alan. Any thoughts on purchasing tips other than the usual Auto Trader Facebook? Yeah, Alan, I have. If you're looking at a 2023 model, there's a lot of dealers out there that are looking to move those cars. They're way under MSRP if you drive around a little bit. I talked to a gentleman the other day. He had to drive 2.5 hours, but he saved $5,000 off sticker. So yeah, I knew someone else that hit me up the other day was looking at used ones. But I don't know that I'd even buy a used Mach right now when there's 2022s and 2023s sitting on lots. If you watch my channel, you probably know I flew to Texas just because I refused to pay over MSRP. And the used market at that time was way higher than the new market. I don't even know how they move those used cars like that. But it might be back to the point of where you can pick up a new Mach 1 now for less than you can a used one. Only because the dealers that have them know the 2024s, and that's a whole other story, what the production is, what's going on with production of those cars. But the 2023s, they know they have to get off of them. If they have a 2022, they're certainly going to come way down under sticker. But you might be in a spot where just look around and be willing to make some phone calls, put a couple of days effort into internet searching and those type of things, and find a dealer that's sitting on one. And I think you'll find them more than willing to deal right now. This is from Luke. I believe the only way to get the actuator direct from Ford now is to buy a whole new OEM muffler, which makes it even more complicated. Well, Luke, I understand why you pulled the exhaust. Those actuators may be on back. I don't know if your actuators, some of those actuators actually get stuck and they can be taken apart and freed up. The wiring harness is one problem. The other problem is the actuators do fail. Now, that was a part number, a separate part number, the actuator that you could get. Obviously, they only have one part number for that. But if that's the case now, if you have to buy the whole muffler, yeah, I might just pull a fuse too. This is from Daniel. Happy he upgraded with the wheels. He got the spoiler separate, adjusted the strut mounts. Oh, adjustable strut mounts seems to be the only thing he missed. That's possible. I mean, like I said, if you're looking for the look of a handling pack, you can certainly do that through the aftermarket. I have the adjustable strut mounts, and I'm not even gonna mess with them because my car's set up for driving on the road. I do track it. I get out on track often, but I'm not a competitive track person. I drive so that I'm having fun. Once I'm to the point where I'm having a good time and the tires start to squeal a little bit, I'm going to back off. I've already been in an accident. I don't want to be in another one. I never buy the track insurance because I'm on track all the time. But I also know when I'm out there that I want to drive this car home. So I push a car to the limits of having fun with it, but not so hard that I'm going to have a problem. I'm going to put myself in a situation I can't get out of. And you go to a track, there's always somebody faster. No matter what you have, it doesn't matter. So I've been on track with Ferrari Tributos and some high-end exotic cars. Those cars are fast. I've been on track with guys that have set their vehicles up just for track use. I'm not going to keep up with those guys. And as long as I'm having a good time and I'm having fun and I'm on track, I can go as fast as I want to legally. It's a lot of fun. So that's how I drive a track. I don't go out there to set lap records. Let's see what's next down here. Richard says the Mach 1s in Atlanta are slightly under MSRP. That's the case all across the country. So I said, if you're looking for one, you're willing to drive a little bit. You may have to fly in and buy it. But airline tickets, they are what they are. If you spend a few $100s on an airline ticket and you drive home and you're up, you just have to look at how much you're going to save. If you're going to save 3 or 4 grand, an airline ticket and some gas on the way home is not a bad deal. And Jonas asks, do I know anyone that makes splash shields for a handling pack Mach One? Yes, I do. But the name escapes me right now. I gotta think it's something. It's Rock Block. Rock Block makes front splash guards for the handling pack cars that you can put on there. I got a set on order. I haven't gotten them yet. So, but yeah, Rock Block makes those. If you have Cup 2s on your car, definitely get a set of splash guards for the front. I had Cup 2s on my first car for about 1,500 miles. I picked up a nail in the back, which I plugged because, I'm cheap and it's easy. And, but I had rubber all over the car. The Cup 2s pick up every grain of sand on the road and just throw it all over your rear quarters. So yeah, Rock Block is the name of the company that makes splash guards for the handling pack cars. GTS under MSRP, Richard says. Anything 22, 23, you should be able to negotiate now. There's a couple things that are going on. One, interest rates are up. So that limits the number of people that can actually even buy these cars. When the interest rates go up, credit gets tighter. So people that are marginal with their credit scores aren't going to be able to buy a new vehicle. They just disqualify them right out of the gate, or they push them into something else that's less expensive. They'll take a lower risk on those folks. So the demand, because interest rates up, has gone down. Also, car payments are up. So not everybody can swing a car payment for a new vehicle. That has a lot to do with what's going on. And then regionally, Mach 1 prices have always fluctuated. So I have a dealer local to me that has always sold at sticker, never above it on anything, ever. That's a dealer that I go to for service work. I go buy my parts there because they could take advantage of people when the market was flip-flopped, but they chose not to. The dealers that are out there that threw these addendum stickers on the side of cars for $4 and $5 grand over sticker, I'll never go there. They took advantage of people because they could take advantage of people. That their service department, their parts department is in lockstep with that because that's something that's top down. A dealer doesn't just raise a price on a car by 5 or 10 grand without the ownership knowing about it. So if the ownership's okay with putting the screws to people on the sales department, they're certainly fine with it doing it, or in the sales department, they're certainly fine doing it in the service department and in the parts department. I just steer clear of those folks. They need to get weeded out and just go away. Except in Miami, it's still. Well, Jonah, get out of Miami. If you see dealers down there that are too high or they're over MSRP, Atlanta's not that far from you. There's other markets that aren't that far from you. Make the trip and save the money on the cost of the car. I think you'll come out ahead in the long run. I did, and I drove 1,500 miles to Texas and flew there and still came out way ahead. So I'd encourage you to look around. If your market is still one of those markets where they're over MSRP on cars, don't buy in that market. Let's see here. Yeah, Daniel, I think you're fine too. It's especially if it's a daily. If you're daily driving it, I don't think you have an issue there. Looking for a Sunshade with Mach 1 branding. No, that's from Daniel as well. He's looking for a Sunshade with Mach 1 branding. I typically, if it's not functional, it's not going to do something for me, I don't buy it. So that's just me. I'm sure there's probably someone out there that makes them, but I can't point you in the right direction on that. I don't buy the aluminum covers for things that go in the engine compartment. And like I said, if I go to a show, I put my hood up, I walk around, I leave. So if it's a show kind of only item, or if it's an accessory, I have a garage, so I really don't have a need for a sunshade. So it's just not something I ever looked into. Let's see here. This is from Rich. He went to Jaeger Brothers. Oh, so Rich says he went to Jaeger Brothers splash guards on his GT350R. I think the GT350Rs are a little different than the Mach 1 with the handling pack. Maybe I'm wrong on that. I looked at GT350R splash guards with my 2021 when I first got it, and they need to be adapted. I actually ended up using a Dremel to cut out a section of the splash guard so it would fit with the lip on the handling pack. But I think Rock Block or Rock Block, they have the splash guards that fit now for the Mach 1s with the handling pack. About splash shields. Jonas, I might make a video about splash shields, but it probably won't be just splash shields. So maybe I'll throw that into one of my other videos when I do something with the Mach 1. Now the Maverick's gone, I'm going to have some free time. I'm going to concentrate on the other two cars. I can get back to that. The Maverick took up a lot of my time just trying to make sure everything was right on that before I jumped in and drove over 6,000 miles in it. But it's possible. So if I get the rock blocks, maybe I'll throw a short together. I really don't like doing short content. It's not my thing. I know a lot of people do shorts right now. It's kind of popular on YouTube. They tell you need to do them. But the only time I'll throw a short together is if it's just something quick that's like, hey, here's this. But it's not going to have a twist plot, or I'm not going to put overlying music on it or try to come up with a clever short. It's just not my forte. But if I get the rock blocks, I'll throw a short together. Hey, here's what I got, and this is how it went. But it'll be less than 60 seconds on the video. Legislation to limit how much dealers. Luke, that's from Luke. Luke thinks that we need some legislation to limit dealers. I don't know that's ever going to happen. I think before you see legislation, because the dealers have a pretty good deal going, and they've had it going for a long time. So the Dealers Association is a very powerful legislative tool. I don't think you're going to see anything through the government that's going to change this. I think what you'll see is Ford and other manufacturers threaten these dealers with a direct ship model where they just cut them out of the equation altogether and they end up becoming service shops. That's the leverage Ford has. That's the only leverage Ford has. So the Dealers Association is pretty strong, and I don't think they're going to strong arm them into going over that you're charging too much to folks out there. I sold cars I'm going to date myself here, in the late 80s. Back then, interest rates on used cars was 14%, and incentives from Ford started at 6.9 for 36 months and went up to 9.9 for 60 months. That's an awful rate compared to what you're getting today. It was difficult to sell cars back then. You had to win people's trust. Your service department had to have their act together. And as a salesperson, you had to have their best interest as your interest. And you wanted them to buy a car from you because you were going to give them the best deal. That's not the case. Well, at least not over the last couple of years. Salespeople have been able to put the screws to people because of limited availability, but that's going away quickly. And I think we're getting back to those days where salespeople are going to have to work harder to get a sale. That's why you see dealers heavily discounting, not just Mach 1s, but everything in inventory, because the inventory's coming back to the dealers and they're sitting on inventory. Most dealerships don't own their inventory. It's financed by a bank. So the longer that inventory sits there, they pay interest on that inventory. So if a car's on a lot for 6 months, that dealer's got 6 months of interest into that vehicle. So there's an incentive there for them to move it. I really don't see what happened over the last 2 years. It hadn't happened 20 years prior to it. I don't see it happening anytime soon. So I don't know that we need legislation to stop dealers from doing that. Plus, you can police these folks yourself. If they're charging too much, just don't go there. Don't go there for anything. Those dealers will just go away. Let me see what else is in here. Lefting says the problem, people are still buying them with ADMs. Sure, some people are. Some people will buy a car with an ADM on it, but you don't have to be that person. I think the client is the best policing agent for this whole problem. If you don't buy at ADM, they'll eventually come off it. So, and I think people buying at ADM they're becoming less and less. They said that whole thing that we've gone through with the market over the last 2 years, that's changing. And it's changing rapidly. Every time the Fed meets and bumps interest rates by a quarter or a half, there's less and less people in the market for vehicles. And when there's less demand, the prices are going to go down. That's just how the free market works. Da, 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 da. Daniel's got his splash guards don't fit. Yeah, Jonas says the GT350 splash guards don't fit. Like I said, I bought a set for my 2021 and I had to alter them, and I did okay with it. It stopped rocks from hitting the car, but it wasn't the best solution. So I'm getting my set in here any day. So I'll throw a short together and you can check out how I make out with these rock blocks. Anthony's checking in. Hi, Anthony. How are you? Love the videos. Thank you, sir. Any ill effects of hydrocarbon trap being removed from the Mach One? None at all. There's no, the hydrocarbon trap, so everyone understands, is a device that was put in to meet California legislation that captures the hydrocarbons after you shut your car down. So they're not capturing hydrocarbons going through the air that you're just picking up. It's when you shut your vehicle off, a little bit of hydrocarbon gas will be emitted from the throttle body. And that's what it's there for. So they put a blockage in front of the throttle body to capture things after you shut the vehicle off. In my case, I drive my vehicle tank to tank. I may go, 300 miles, fill up, go 300 miles more, fill up, go 300 miles more, fill up. The reduced gas mileage I was getting was certainly emitting more hydrocarbons into the atmosphere than this device was capturing when I shut down my car to fill it up. And there's no ill effects. The O2 sensors adjust instantly. There's as long as you put the tube in, you keep the diameter of the intake the same as it was from the factory, there's no problems. Like I said in my video, I think you could throw a 2021 Mach 1 setup on there and you're basically back to a 2021. If you pull the trap at a 22 and put the tube back in, snap it, you're back to where you were in 2021. So yeah, there's no ill effects. So I've data logged it. I've looked at it. There's been thousands of people across the country that have done the exact same thing. I heard a couple of people that said something, but I really think that they pulled the whole thing out and didn't put the tube back in. That's the only issue you can have. Also, Ford's OEM filter is real flexible where you mount it onto that tube there. So sometimes folks I like to take the lid off when I pull the air filter because I make sure that seal is correct. If you don't do that, if you just try to pop it in there with the top lid on, it doesn't seal correctly and it starts making noises. So I did have a couple of folks that dealt with that, but it's just a matter of putting the air filter on right. That's all. Trying to get mine out. Daniel's still trying to get his out. Extra strap or a connection in 2022. 2023, no. I guarantee you Ford didn't change anything in 2023. Maybe get somebody to help you. It's a lot easier. Those 3 tabs are rough. Like I've had folks tell me they put Allen wrenches in there to hold them up so you can pull the tube out. But I pushed on I had it things lodged in the 3 tabs and then pushed from the bottom and popped the whole tube out and then remove the hydrocarbon trap and snap the tube back in. I think that's the easiest. I saw a video that somebody, I guess, watched my video and then decided to make their own. And they pulled the tube out from the front without removing everything. And I have a feeling maybe they broke a couple of the tabs because I said to them, you need to put the tube back in. I'm going to try it without it, was the response that I got from them. I'm like, well, you're going to have bad trim numbers because the ECU doesn't know what's going on with your mass airflow sensor diameter's off. That's fixed. That's set. So you need to put the tube back in, and they didn't. So I have a feeling maybe something happened when they pulled it out, but they pulled the whole tube out and then try to remove it. I think you'll get it. Maybe get somebody to help you. You lodge the 3 tabs and have them push on the trap from the throttle body side, and it should pop out. This is from A Money. Dumb question. That's great because I'm not the brightest. So dumb questions I excel at. Best year to look for on a budget for a first gen Coyote. That's a tough one. I always default to like 2011s go that way. 2010s and the Shelby 2010s are kind of like a tweener year. Ford was in between a model change and a lot of weird things going on with the 2010s. So I'd say 2011. But really, if you're looking at a Coyote, you need to look at the condition of the vehicle before you look at anything else. If you can find something that hasn't been abused, and they're out there, there's people my age and older that buy these cars. I had a neighbor up the street that was in his 70s that sold a 2015 way too cheap. And I know he never beat that car. So try to find a good deal on a vehicle if you're on, especially if you're on a budget. Because if you buy a car that's maybe a little bit cheaper, but it's been hammered on a little bit, you're going to end up putting more money into it than you should. So if you find a car that's well taken care of and it seems to be a good price for what it is, that's the way to go. Let's see here. Yeah, Lafdine says 2013 or 2014. 13s and 14s are great cars. Like I said, I had a 2013 Boss 302. It was a great car. Really, the only problem I had was that transmission. I probably still have it. I know the current owner, he loves that car, and it is a nice car. Now, he also admitted that he never goes over $7,000 when he shifts. He's usually, the highest he's going, I think, is 5,500. And if you do that, you're never going to have shift lockout. But a 13, 14 is a good car. 11, 12s are fine. The only one I'd steer clear of is a 10. This is from Andrew. Love the videos. Have I gone to Ford Nationals at Carlisle before? Well, I live about 20 minutes from Carlisle. I've got, I don't know if you can see back on this wall over here, there's some first place plaques. I used to go up there all the time. One of the first muscle cars I bought at Carlisle. So it was a 1970 Torino Cobra. It's a 429 Cobra jet. I bought that when I was 19 at Carlisle. So yes, I've been there many times. It's a great show. Like I said, I don't really like to go to shows too much, but if you're going to pick one show to go to in a year, and you live on the East Coast, Carlisle is a really great one. There's very little you won't see there. Actually, it's almost too big not to see. It's too big to see everything, but if you're looking for something that's Ford Motorsport related or Ford muscle car related or Mustang related, it's going to be a Carlisle Nationals. It's a really nice show. I probably will go this year. I don't do videos on car shows. I don't like to watch them, so I don't find them too entertaining. I will try to find a couple of folks to talk to maybe video their car if it's got a decent story or if it's something unusual. So I think I'll be up there this year, but it just depends. The other thing is if it's raining, I'll probably skip it. So I've been up there in the rain too many times. It's just miserable. You can't get up the hill. Well, now they've paved them. Back in the old days, they didn't pave the hill. If you try to walk up there in the rain, you find yourself at the bottom of the hill in a mess real quick. But yeah, I probably will find myself up at Carlisle sometime. Daniel says he can barely get the hose 6 inches from the car. Looks like my hose was okay. I'm not sure what hose you're talking about. I don't know what you're missing there, Daniel. You just got to take the lid off the air cleaner, then back off the band clamps on the hose from the air cleaner all the way to the throttle body, and then remove that whole piece. That's best I can tell you. I don't know if I don't know how else to express it to you. Maybe watch the video a couple of times, pause it, and take it step by step. The hardest part of that hydrocarbon trap removal is getting that tube out of the other tube. That's the hardest part. So unless your mass airflow sensor is still in, maybe that's what's giving you headaches. That mass airflow sensor has to come out, and be careful with that. It's a sensor, so be careful with that. But that's the only thing I can think of that's giving you additional issues. A Money says, thank you. I'm in Central New York. They are around. Oh, it's okay. So yeah, he's looking for the Coyote. Probably wouldn't buy that at Carlisle, but like I said, I would tell you just to try to find a Coyote that is taken care of. That's the key. If you find a vehicle that wasn't hammered, and Coyotes can take some hammering, but if you find a car that's well taken care of, you're going to end up with a nice car. Rev 68, hey there, how are you? Okay, so I'm caught up on my questions. I think that I hope I didn't miss anyone. I have a Ranchero video coming out this weekend, so I've been working on it all week. I put that Torino video out, and it's gotten a lot of views. And if you watched it, thank you for that. But I did get a lot of folks that said, "Hey, you forgot about the Rancheros. You forgot about the Rancheros." I heard that pretty much every day since I released it. I didn't forget about them. Rancheros are different than Torinos. Now, Rancheros were made from Torinos, but they were also made from Falcons, Fairlanes. Uh, the back in they go all the way back to '57 when it was just a Ford. It was the '57 Ford. They made it into a Ranchero. So I'm working on that video now. I should have it out Saturday morning. If you've ever liked a Ranchero, maybe check it out. Okay, so Daniel, does he mean the hose high tube trap? It seems like strapped down somehow. So Daniel, you know what, man? I'm going to message you when this thing's over. I'm going to get you my number, and I'm going to walk you through this thing. We're going to get your trap out of there. I promise. So, yeah, when we get done with this thing, I'm going to shoot you a message. I'm going to get you my cell number. And when you're ready, you and I are going to walk through this hydrocarbon trap removal so you get this thing done. I hope that works for you, buddy. I really want to see you make this thing happen. I know you've been struggling with it for a while. So we're just going to walk step by step through it. You get the thing out, put the tube back in, you'll be golden. Fair enough? So if it is, like, give me a thumbs up down there or something. Lefty, love the T-Bird video. You know, those T-Bird turbo coupes, I told you I sold cars in the late 80s for a Ford dealer. Turbo coupes were one of my favorite cars back then. I just loved the look of those things. I remember watching NASCAR with Bill Elliott and Davey Allison and Cale Yarborough running those cars at the super speedways and just going by people. It was a video I wanted to do for a while. I just never got around to it. And there's several of those vehicles that I really like personally. And I'm going to do, a retrospective type of video on what they are. But the T-Bird really impacted everything Ford did from that point forward. That was the first real aero car. And I can remember I was driving back to Pope Air Force Base and had I think a 73 Vega GT wagon that burned a quart of oil every 50 miles. And one of those going by me. And I can remember thinking, what is that thing? Because I hadn't seen one yet. When I was in the Air Force, I wasn't able to spend as much time on cars as I would have liked. And I kind of lost track of what was going on with the new vehicles at the time. But I got passed by a new Thunderbird, and it was impactful. It was something like, wow, look at that. And so those T-Birds are just something that I always thought was a neat car. And it really did, if not for the Thunderbird, you wouldn't have the Taurus. And people don't know this, but the Ford Taurus for a long time was the #1 selling car in America. It broke all the sales records. It beat Honda Accord. Honda Accord was the #1 prior to that, but it surpassed them. And the Taurus was a big car for Ford. Everything got to become more aero after the introduction of the Thunderbird. So if you hate that look, you know which car to blame. If you like it or like that it was incorporated, you can thank the Thunderbird for that. Okay, so me and Daniel are good. We're going to get this thing done, Daniel. I promise you, we'll get it done. How many people? I have 26 people out there. No questions on my trip across country. Did you guys watch that video? Because I didn't put all the awful times in there. It was a good trip. Don't get me wrong. Driving through Nevada, if you've ever not driven Route 50 in Nevada, you need to do it. It's probably the best day I had out there. And Glenn actually went off and explored on his own. Now, I knew he was still behind me because he was out in the zone. He was taking a longer path over a mountain instead of through it. But Route 50 in Nevada, it's like a meditation period for you. There's no one out there. You're driving for almost 400 miles. I think I was doing 60, 65 in the Maverick. I got passed by 2 cars in 400 miles. That was it. It's you, the mountains, and the scenery, and an occasional pronghorn, which I think are antelope. I don't know. Maybe antelope or pronghorn or antelope. I don't know. You'll see one of those every once in a while. It's the route of the Pony Express when you're on it. And as bad a time as I had occasionally in the Maverick, being in that car with a heater was way better than any Pony Express rider I ever faced. It's a really neat part of the country. If you haven't been there, I encourage you to go in something just to take it. So if you ever find yourself out in the western part of the United States, and you get a chance to drive Route 50, absolutely, definitely do it. Oh, now I got some questions coming in here. Did I ever get hassled for working on the car in a parking lot? No. I don't really. It's one of those things where if you don't ask, you don't have to worry about it. I just would pull up into the parking lot and just start doing it. So when I replaced the starter, it was 9 o'clock at night, and I thought I need to do this now because I don't want to do it tomorrow morning. I had my headlamp with me, so I had light, and I had a jack, and I found a piece of wood in the parking lot that I could stick under the car, so if the jack failed, it would fall on the piece of wood. That's a bad idea, but no one ever gave me a hard time. I changed the oil in a parking lot. I didn't spill oil everywhere. I was conscientious of where I was at, but they generally don't say a whole lot to you if you're working on your vehicle in the parking lot. Maybe because they're afraid you're going to ask them to help. I don't know. But no, I never got a hard time for working on my car in a parking lot. Laughdeen asks, what made me decide to do that? I did it before. I've done it before. It's just one of those things that it doesn't happen that often. It's rare that someone takes an old car across the country. And I've taken some really epic road trips, not in older vehicles. It's been a number of years since I've done it. But I just wanted to do it to show it can be done. You can take a car from the 70s and use it as a car. You can get in and go and drive across the country and come back and make the trip. So a lot of people tell you you can't do that anymore. It's not possible. There's things that just the infrastructure is not there any longer. The parts aren't there. But if you pick the right car, if you pick that straight six automatic, some of the things around it may have had issues, and some of them were. That power steering pump was 46 years old. I probably should have replaced it before I left, but you can't do that with everything. So you got to pick and choose what you replace. But I wanted to show people that you can take an old car and still use it as a vehicle. You can drive all the way across the country and back and make it happen. So that's more or less why I did it. Glenn's asking me about the German Fords, Escorts, Mercurys, Capris. I did a video on cars that exist in other parts of the world, but you can't buy in America because I was interested in it. Apparently, nobody else was. So they make some really neat cars in other parts of the country. Ford has a division in China. You won't see any of those cars here. The people that were upset with the Dark Horse dash with the two LCDs, there's a Ford, I think it's a 500. Could be a Taurus, I'm not sure. But the dash goes all the way over into the passenger side. It's gigantic, but they only make it in China. And just no one watched it. So it's possible I may do something with the Capri that came to this country. I need to do something with Mercury because I have no Mercury representation on my channel whatsoever at this point. So yeah, maybe I'll get to that at some point. Mike Delancey, that's my brother-in-law. Hi, Mike. How are you? He asked me what the gas prices were like. Gas prices really fluctuate depending on where you're driving. And I don't know. I think they just charge you what they think they can. So if you're in Nevada, Utah, Nebraska, gas was relatively inexpensive. As soon as you get across the California border, gas jumps up to like $5 a gallon. And I almost think it can't cost that much more to get gas to California. I know they have taxes on them. I live in Pennsylvania. Our tax on gas is one of the highest in the country. But I can't think California's gas tax that nuts? Or is it just gas companies saying, hey, we think we can charge these people, five. And I bought regular for the Maverick. It doesn't take premium. I don't know. Like Glenn probably bought premium. I'm not sure what that was, but regular was like $5.15 a gallon, which is nuts. And I think gas companies they charge what they can get away with wherever they happen to be at or where they sell gas at. But I think Nebraska was the least expensive gas, and California was definitely the highest price gas. So I filled up in California twice, and it was both times over $5 a gallon. Bart Rowley says hi. Hi, Bart. How are you? Daniel says he likes the videos about foreign cars. Maybe I'll put that back up there. I liked it too. I like researching it just to see what else was out there. Some of the vehicles that were I'd like to see Ford make cars again. Actually, I'd like to see anybody make cars again. I grow tired of looking at SUVs. I'm not an SUV person. I don't own one. I haven't owned one for a long time. I have a pickup because I do truck things with it. I plow the driveway with it. I go pick up parts with it and, old parts or whatever. And it's treated like a truck. But I'm just not an SUV person. I never really see myself buying an SUV. I know they've done a lot with the handling, but, they sit up higher and there's going to be some body roll there. And I'd like to see cars make a comeback. I'd like to see wagons come back. I wouldn't mind seeing, and I'm going to give you folks that are in here just a little bit of a heads up on something I'm going to put in the Ranchero video. I think the new Maverick is kind of the old Ranchero. It's a truck on a car frame, and it acts more like a car than it does a truck. I'd like to see some of that stuff come back. I'd like to see station wagons come back. I thought station wagons were a nice vehicle. They handled like a car. And I don't know, people like SUVs because they just want to sit up. They feel safer, more secure in them. But yeah, I'd like to see cars make a comeback in a big way. And Ford makes something other than just a Mustang. And you hear constantly about how we've got to get away from fossil fuels and EVs are important, la, 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 la. Yet Ford doesn't make a small car anymore. Most manufacturers don't make a small car anymore. I think the only one that really does is Toyota. So I'd like to see Ford return, at least have something, have some small car available that people can buy. A Focus, something, anything. So only making the Mustang EVs is probably a smart move financially because that's where they butter their bread. That's where they make the money. They can charge more for SUVs. They can certainly, some of the new trucks now are just insane in what they charge for them. But as far as, doing something for the people, why not make a car people can buy just to drive around it? Why is that such a bad thing? So I really don't know. But I'd like to see cars come back. Mercury was a fun car. Yeah, that's from Lofty. Mercury is a neat car. Actually, someone brought up Carlisle earlier, and when I think of a Mercury, I think of Carlisle. And the reason for that is there's a ton of those guys at Carlisle, and I mean a couple hundred. And the weird thing about the Mercury guys is they probably have the best time of anybody. They're getting out like wine and cheese. It's a really different group. They're throwing frisbee. They all arrive at the show together at the same time. They all roll in like a parade, and they all leave at the same time. They all have tents. They sleep on the campgrounds. But Mercury's a cool car. I've looked at Mustang SVOs. Actually, test drove a couple of those back when they were relatively new, and I'd like to have one. Although the more I look at parts for those things, there are a lot of one-off parts on that car, and they're up there on price. So I think I saw a turn signal indicator for $400. So I don't know if I'm going to look at an SVO that much. They're pretty salty on parts. Thoughts on gains from an X pipe? This is from Anthony with a performance air filter and the trap removed. If you take a resonator off, and I took the resonator off my 2021, they're basically just straight through pipes. They've got perforations in there, and that's the deaden the sound. There's little holes. But if you hold it up, it's like a pair of binoculars. You can see straight through the resonator. So I don't know that. I mean, you might pick up 1 or 2 horsepower, but I don't know if the X pipe. You get an X pipe or an H pipe and a res delete kit because you want more volume. The horsepower gains are minimal at best. If you want to get a better horsepower out of the exhaust, I think you have to go with long tube headers and high flow cats. Like I said, I think that's my next move. I might end up with an X or an H if I have to. But I removed the Resonator from my 2021. Did I notice a difference? Absolutely not. I mean, it's 1-2 horsepower maybe at most. It's more of a volume kind of thing. The car's definitely gonna be louder when you do that. I can tell you that. It's also louder depending on which one you pick inside the cabin as well. So that's something else to think about. It's not really a horsepower upgrade. It's more of a noise level. But make sure you pick the right one. And I can't tell you which one's the right one. I don't know. But I know you do get a little more drone in the passenger compartment when you go with an X or an H pipe. Up here's another track attack question in June. I'm going down in June, so I don't know when you're going. I think it's the 20th is when I'm down there. Just don't try to set any lap records. Folks always ask me about the insurance down there. I didn't get it, but like I said, I drive to the point of where I'm having a good time. The other thing is, so you understand with track attack, it's paced, and they'll only pace you by the slowest person in your group. So if you get someone in your group that's, I'm going to say timid, they don't go that fast. Now that's me speaking, and I've been on 70 different tracks, probably more than that over the years. So I'm used to driving pretty briskly on a track. But the last time I was down there, got in a group, there was one guy that was a little, and he apologized later. Look, I'm sorry. I was afraid to push it anymore. I get it. If it's your first time on a track, that wall, the banking is intimidating. The walls are intimidating. You're not really sure where the apexes are, or the braking zones are. I understand it. But I went in last time with an open mind. I'm going to go in this time with an open mind. If I get another slow guy in the group, that's how it goes. If I get in a group with really quick drivers and I'm the slow guy, that's how it goes. We'll see. But yeah, track attack, don't go to the hotel they recommend you to go to. That's the biggest piece of advice I can give you. And just go in with an open mind and take in everything that they tell you. They will tell you some things that will stick with you later. Not only just on the track, but just for general driving. Brailford. Matt made it in there. Hey, buddy, how are you? Thanks for coming in. I appreciate it. It's packing for the Hot Wheels car show this weekend. Well, that sounds like a good thing to do. They put a Corsa HH pipe on my 2021 Mach 1 and regret it. That's from Rev 68. Yeah, I get it. If you pick the wrong res delete, well, you do any res delete, you're going to get more noise in the interior. That's just how it is. So if you're going to do an X pipe or an H pipe, you do it because you want the car to be louder. Don't necessarily do it because you want more horsepower, because if you want more horsepower, you got to go to headers and you got to go to high flow cats. That's the only way you're going to get actual horsepower. The X or H is going to be very minimal as far as the gain. Daniel's group had to be sneaky to do it. Daniel, I hit 100 and something in my group. You don't really have to be that sneaky. You can, I guess, when you're in a small group like that and they're pacing you on track, they watch you because you're going to accordion a little bit. And if you want to hit 100, accordion maybe a little bit more. So when you're coming around the bank, you can just hammer down and just go. But 100 on a track is, that's okay. Yeah, depending on the track you can get at, and the Mach 1, you can get well up to 140, 150, depending on the track. So, but yeah, I can believe you had 100 down there. And I know what you're saying when you got sneaky. No, you don't need experience down there. It's not set up for that. It's what's called lead follow. So they'll have one car lead you, and there'll be a group that follow. You'll get behind that lead car at some point, and then that's where really your chance to learn. When you're in the back of the pack in any lead follow track, it's kind of like that old thing where you take a message and you pass it down from person to person to person. By the time it gets to the fifth person, it's really jumbled. And that's what happens in a lead follow in a track situation. If you're the fifth car in line, your line, the professional driver's line is way off by the time it gets to you. So this person's off a little bit, this person's off a little more. But once you get behind that lead car, push that car. That would be my other, for anyone's going to do track attack, push that first car, get on his bumper so he goes faster. And then, but because he's going to have the right line, and no matter how hard you push him, believe me, you're not really pushing him. He's going way faster than what you're going. So, but that's where you learn, is when you're behind that instructor, is where you really understand what's going on and what's happening with the track and where the turn in point is and where the break period is and those type of things. His instructor hit 140. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's yeah, you'll get a chance to go out on the track with the instructor at the end of track attack, and that's where you need to have your helmet strapped on tight, because those folks are going to push the car hard.
It's all breaking up. You can't understand it.
Oh, so that's where the sorry, my wife jumped in. That's where you have to really hit the car hard. Okay, being my first car and following the instructor, learned so much. Yeah, that's where you're going to learn. When you're behind the instructor is when you're going to pick things up. They know the line. They're a professional driver, and most of this, when I say professional, they're driving in ARCA series, they're driving in EMSA series. They're professional drivers at that school. So when you follow them, that's what you want to do. Push them, and they'll go a little bit quicker, but they're going to be right on the right line to maximize your speed. Matt can't wait for racing school. You need to call me before you go down to VIR. I'm going to give you a couple pointers on what's going on down there. I've driven VIR several times. There's one corner, and this is true anybody that goes to a track. There was one corner of VIR that I just couldn't get right. I mean, it just didn't make sense to me. And I put, I don't know, 7, 8 times in a row. But when you finally get it, then it makes perfect sense. And then you'll see that corner at other tracks again and again. So the more, that's the one thing that if you want to be faster, go to driving school. That's where you learn to be quicker. And for those that have been to track attack, I'm sure they pick something up and they're a little better. But that one school is not going to do it for you. You need to go a few times a year if you can afford it. And track attack, I know their second day is very expensive. There's driving schools that are going to be close to you folks out there that are not as expensive, that you can maybe spend a few $100s on, and you're going to learn a lot every time you go. You get, as also with those local schools, you get a lot more one-on-one time with those people than you do at the track attack. Track attack is a lot of classroom stuff, and that's fine, but really seat time is what you need, and you'll get that at your local driving schools. And you want the car to be quicker, you want to be faster on track, definitely go to school. It's worth the money that you put into it. Yellow Hammer, what's happening, Connor? How are you, sir? Daniel said, well, Daniel's been to track attack, so he's going to look for a local driving school. They're out there. And like I said, when you see the pricing on the local driving school, you'll know why I rejected the second day at the track attack. I think they wanted $2,300. I rent whole tracks for groups for like $2,500 or then less. So to go to a school for one day for over $2,000, that's nuts. So you don't have to pay that kind of money. Do I prefer track days over autocross? Yeah, very much so. Autocross, especially in a Mustang. So most autocrosses are set up in a parking lot somewhere, and they can be fun, but you have to have the right car there. So if you have a MX-5 and you put on some racing tires, autocross is perfect. You've got a quick car, it's 50-50, it's nimble, it can scoot. You're not really getting up to, most autocrosses are set up so you're not getting up into real high speeds, but a track is a whole different, and this is going to be maybe funny to people that don't know this, but every racetrack you go to America, their track car is usually an MX-5, and that's how it is. That's what every track has MX-5s somewhere. They all do. But an autocross is fun in an MX-5. In a Mustang, you can have fun there, but the smaller cars that are quick, that have good tires on, are probably going to have better times than you are. That's just how it is with autocross. Most autocrosses are set up in a small parking lot, and they're set up intentionally so that you don't get up into the higher speeds. So they're set up for the smaller speeds.
Let's see what else we got in here. How about budget preference?
You know, autocross is obviously cheaper than going to a driving school. The problem is with autocross is you're not really learning on a track. You're learning on a cone configuration. Like I said, they're fun, but it's not. It's a different experience than a track. And I've been on autocrosses that were set up in big parking lots, but still, the fastest they would let you go there because of the way they lay out the cones is about 60, 70 miles an hour. That's the highest speed you're going to get. Like I know Matt Brailford rides in here. He's going to be down at VIR. You can do on the back stretch at VIR almost 150-ish in a street car. And there's no autocross setup that's going to allow you to do that. Robert Satchel, hi there. How are you? Mach One a couple of months ago. Pickups for motorcycles. Well, welcome to the Mach One world. I hope you watch my videos so you know what's going on with some of the stuff that I've tried to show you out there. Congrats on the purchase. So Mach One's a great car. I think you'll like it. This is Connor. He says 350 every 20 minutes, 10 tenths, whole day on track. Where are you at, Connor? You're paying 350 for 20 minutes on track? But I mean, really, here's the other thing about getting out on a track. If you have a street car and you have street tires on, 20 minutes on track it's about all you're going to want to be on. And depending on the track and the harder you drive the track, the more you get on your brakes. So like I had a Boss 302. My brake fluid was cooked within 15,000 miles, and that's probably 15 track days. So the brake fluid started to turn brown or black, and it needed to be flushed. And that's because the brakes heat up so much. You actually end up boiling your brake fluid a little bit. And so that's something you have to watch on your track days. You don't want to be out, even if you're at a school, too long on a track with a street-driven car. If it's a manual, never engage your parking brake because they will stick to your calipers will stick. So you don't want to the rotors. You don't want that to happen either. You'll never be able to drive home. Rev 68, thoughts and impressions changed on the MGW shifter. Now, Rev, I covered that a little bit earlier. It is an upgrade in the Mach 1, but it's not a tremendous upgrade. They're better. If you want that click that you get with a short throw, you'll get that with the MGW. However, it's not that big a jump. So with the MT82s, the aftermarket shifters are so much better than the factory shifters. You have to do it. If you've got an MT82 transmission, you definitely want to get an aftermarket shifter. But with a Tremec, it's not that big an upgrade, and it's a lot bigger hassle to install the thing. I can tell you that. So it's a half day. I could throw a Barton shifter on my Boss in 40 minutes, maybe. So yeah, no, my thoughts really haven't changed. It's a nicer shifter. It's certainly better constructed, but I don't know that it's that much better that I'm going to go out and drop $550 on one again. I don't think I'm going to do it. If you do get an MGW, make sure you buy their shifter ball, because the shifter ball on the new Mach 1, it's not even a ball. It's kind of like cut off on the bottom, and then it threads way up in here. So when you put that on the MGW, your shifter ends up being like that tall. So it's a headache. So you have to buy the ball with it. So it's not just a shifter. You make sure you buy the ball with it. If you like a short throw shifter, you want things to be super sharp and super crisp, then sure, go out and get it. It is nicer. It's just not that much nicer, I guess. Let's see here. Connor was asking, no. What he meant, $350 is a whole track day for 3 groups and 30-minute session rotations. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I just rented, and I do this for the group that I'm with. It's Rally North America. I'm one of the organizers. I just rented an hour on Palmer, and that's for 25 cars. Palmer Motorsports Park is up in Massachusetts. It was $1,500. And we could go out there. You could get about a 20-minute session in for that. But if you do the math, $1,500 divided by 25, it's not that bad. Now, we do have track insurance as part of our organization, so I'm able to give them a cert, and we get insurance. Our insurance is salty for our group. It's about $9,000 a year, but you can get insurance through the tracks, and they might charge you $350 to $400. But if you want to get decent track time, talk to people about running a track off days, like a Monday afternoon where they don't typically rent out a track. And if you put together a group of people, 15, 20 people, you buy the insurance through the track, you can end up getting out there for a little bit of nothing, really. Okay. Matt loves his new MGW. Well, yeah, you got an MT82. You certainly would. Yeah, I'm sure when you looked at the shifter you took off there, you thought, how did Ford throw this piece of plastic junk in this car to begin with? Because the MT82 factory shifter is bad. I mean, it's just bad. So, yeah, I get that. Yeah, the second day at Track Attack School, they want $2,200 for that. Don't do that. You're throwing money away. You could get 2 or 3 local schools for the same amount of money. Days at schools, half days at schools. I would never do that. NCM Park. Connor asked me if I was there. Yeah, I've been there twice, and they do a lead follow program there, and they'll do the same thing. They'll push as hard as the slowest car in your group. It's a great track. It's a lot of fun. That's the National Corvette Museum down in Kentucky. That's an awesome time there. I've rented that track twice. I guarantee you I'll be back at that track yet again. It's a good time. Matt says the MGW is greater than the Barton. Yeah, it is. It's also more money. The Barton, trust me, though, the Barton is way better than the factory Ford shifter. So it's like night and day difference. The MGW is a better shifter. There's no doubt about it. You got to pay a little bit more for it, and it's a little more complicated to put in. The Barton is a simple install, and the upgrade is insane. So I'm sure the MGW is better than the Barton, no doubt. Yeah, Connor picked up on that. So $2,200 for a full day. Yeah, the Ford School, they give you the Saturday, which is half classroom and half, like I'm going to say, another quarter of driving around the parking lot and on a skid pad and that type of thing. They put you out on the track for about an hour and a half, something like that. But it's free. So Ford throws it in for free. They do offer a second day. They want $2,200 for that second day. There is no way anyone should pay that $2,200 for a second day. So I rent whole racetracks for groups for less than that. So that's nuts. Mike likes his Barton on his Bullet. Barton's a good shifter. The reason why Barton and MGW sell so many shifters for the MT82 transmission is because the factory shifter is a piece of crap. I mean, it's just, call it what it is. It's stamped steel and plastic that's greased up. It's awful. So yeah, Barton's a big step up over Ford, and MGW is a little bit of a step up over the Barton. But the Ford factory shifter, someone at Ford should get whipped for making that thing. It's just awful. So. Yeah, Connor, you're going to love it at NCM. It's a really nice track, very professional group there. You're going to love that track. It's a good time there for sure. Okay. I still got 20 people in here. Oh, I'm 20 minutes over my time. Thank you, everybody, for watching. It's appreciated. I appreciate you guys coming in here. Like I said, I'll do this every once in a while. I don't want to do it too often. I know there's like StreamYard provides a thing where you can bring in a guest. I'm not quite to that point yet. Maybe at some point down the road. I understand YouTube might do it at some point. So if they do that and I can find the right person to bring in here and talk to you folks, I will. I certainly appreciate you coming in this evening. I'm going to check this one more time just to see if I have anything else in here. Nope, I think everybody's good. So yeah, I'm 20 minutes over. Thank you so much. I have some videos coming out. If you ever want to know anything about the Ranchero Saturday morning, that's going to be going up at some point. And I'm about 3/4 of the way through that video, so I expect to finish it either tonight or tomorrow morning. So thank you so much, everybody. Keep watching the videos. I appreciate every one of you guys hitting those like buttons and subscribing. It's just awesome. So never thought I'd be here, but I am certainly appreciative that I am. So until next time, we'll see you.